Hey, there we go.
Hey.
Sound.
Okay,
Rolling.
Speed.
Hey.
Speed. 5, 4.
Don't nod your heads along with the guys.
Warning. This is a big warning. Spoilers for Star Wars are about to be unleashed upon your ears. If you have not seen the movie, stop listening immediately.
Forever.
But go to patreon.com and give us money.
Money.
Welcome to Topicocalypse, a podcast where a group of educated or uneducated people sit around a table in the suburbs to discuss anything, everything, and nothing at all at the same time for your amusement, and mostly mine. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and podcast.com. Find us at Topicocalypse. If you like what we're doing, you can contribute up to $7 trillion on patreon.com. We'll have exclusive content for you can get at any time for our Patreon subscribers. Check us out today. All right, so
Yeah.
hey, buddy, we are all back. This feels weird. I feel like the teacher where the principals come in to substitute the class because I'm under pressure. I'm hosting today. I'm Brian Kane. Josh is observing. I could be fired at any moment.
Right, and we're all going to trade names and giggle about it.
So I'm not Josh.
I'm Denial.
I'm not Big Dog.
Who the fuck am I stuck? Whoever you want to be.
I don't want to be you.
No, he does. He's
All right, guys, this is an emergency pod. Emergency because Star Wars has now hit the theaters. And it is polarizing to say the least. We got a special guest joining us in a few minutes. We're going to discuss everything.
Gerald, Glassford, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, everyone? Just great to be here, and this is going to be an experience unlike any other for Topicocalypse. Well, actually, wasn't like we did the same thing last week?
Yeah, this is part 2 of our discussion.
Remember. We don't. This is our very first podcast. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, that's right. Each time, every time. Only
we're rookies.
Joe Rogan actually stole our idea, so
he's doing it,
and our listeners.
Exactly.
Right. So last week we talked about our anticipation of Star Wars. And now it's come out. We've all seen it. We've all had a chance to react, absorb.
Wait, what?
What? It came out? No way. So now we've seen it. We want to discuss. This is really important stuff. Probably the biggest movie release of the year, and also the most polarizing of the year. So first, Gerald, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the movie? And then we'll kind of dive in further.
Well, when I used to run YourGameSource.com, I used to do everything on a score basis, even down to the tenths of a point. Now, when we're doing Pop Culture Cosmos, I asked whenever we're doing a review, either Josh or myself, to do it on a star basis. I rated The Force Awakens, the previous film, in there about a 7.5 because that's, I think, was about the best you could probably say from it. This one, with all the ups and downs, I'd probably give it, when it came out, about a 7.8.
Okay.
I wouldn't give it an 8, but I don't think I would give it a 7 as well.
Okay. Was there anything? So you're rating it higher than the episode 7. So what is it that extra 0.3 in your mind? Was there something in the story? Something?
Well, I basically rate the movie out into 3 different chapters, and that's how I came to a score. Basically, where it comes down to is. The first part of the movie I gave, it was solid. It was pretty good, pretty entertaining. Some parts of it were highly unbelievable, but for the most part, it was all right. I gave it around an 8. The second part of the movie, which a lot of it, is the issue, and I think a lot of people have concerns over it, including myself. I think it became too convoluted. I think when you're stretching the story into 4 different parts and 4 different segments, you're asking the film and the filmmakers to do way too much in telling the story, and I gave that part a 5. But the ending chapter, I really, really enjoyed. I really thoroughly put that up there with the best of the Star Wars endings, and I gave that part a 10, so altogether 23, and which equates out to what the 7.8 is, or close to it. So basically, the ending for me saved the movie from really going off into a bad direction and it still gives me hope for. Sorry to use that word pun on there, but it gives me a new perspective and initiative to see what's going to happen in episode 9. Even though there's so many unresolved questions, so many things that could have been maybe put into 9 that were gotten rid of or taken out in episode 8. I know that's a lot of conjecture. I know a lot of people are all over the internet signing petitions, voicing their opinions. You know what? If you
think about those petitions, actually, I find that really odd.
I just find it amusing. It happens now a lot in our social media age. With if somebody doesn't like to do something about it, start a petition or whatnot. I mean, with the net neutrality thing, I did sign a petition on one of those things, chance.org, choice.org and whatnot, on ACLU.org, because of the fact I thought it was going to mean something, because you see 300, 400,000 people signing these things, and you think maybe somebody might take notice that that's higher up and might be affected by it. Disney is aware of the backlash and sees these petitions, but they're very small in comparison. 7, 10,000, 15,000 people, 20,000 people signing up. That's a very small amount compared to who sees the film. What they're more aware of, I see, is the backlash, the hashtags. The Last Jedi is awful and The Last Jedi is bad. They see those hashtags being used constantly. I think that's of more importance to Disney, to Rian Johnson, to J.J. Abrams, about how they're going to treat the series going forward. There were a lot of bold changes. I appreciated a great deal of the bold moves that they made. Not all of them, but I did appreciate a lot of the great moves that that Rian Johnson made. But I can see why a lot of people have issue with the movie. People have just didn't think it was a very good movie, because if you come through that middle part, and no matter how good that ending was to me, a lot of people just could not get through that middle part, which was such a slog and such a really just a slow and bad part to get through. And I just see a lot of people just not being able to get by it.
So you said specifically the ending brought you back into it. What was it about? What part are we referring to specifically?
I just think that last chapter where they landed on the planet and basically the confrontation with, again, spoilers out there, Kylo Ren and Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, of course, that confrontation. Basically for me, Mark Hamill was the best part of The Last Jedi. I think his very nature and how he understood where his aura of Luke Skywalker's at, his very self-deprecating and self-awareness of his own character in real life and also within the mythos of Star Wars, made it, to me, a really, really great character, instead of just becoming that long line of Jedis turn into warriors, turn into Yoda, just following that same path that the other Jedi have fallen into. I like the fact that he understood where he is at. He's having trouble with it, his complexities and his character, and it led into a situation where he still understood at the end with Kylo Ren what way Kylo Ren is going, and still told him that it's not going to work, it's not going to end up the way you think, and basically that there are still Jedi powers still at force out there with Rey, and that his just presence on the screen really made it, to me, worthwhile. To me, it was a great way to send off his character in the physical sense. Now, obviously, he'll probably come back as a Yoda ghost at some point in time in episode 9 or what have you, but I really enjoyed that part of it. That confrontation made it all the worthwhile, and basically, for me, saved the entire movie.
Do you think that, before I have points that I want to make about the movie, but before I get there, do you think that the whole thing, how that whole confrontation is based on a misunderstanding between the two? What do you think of that plot point? Like, I thought that it was kind of ridiculous. It was just something that felt like two sane people would actually like sit down and talk about. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, that they should have been there. It all goes back to, okay, so how was Snoke interacting with Ben Solo? You don't know, because they don't tell you. That part I have an issue with. How was the influence there? You're right. Why wasn't there any dialogue between Ben and Luke Skywalker to the point where maybe there could have been some type of resolve or something, prevented before it came to lightsabers going at each other. You're right. There should have been something confronted there, and that to me was an issue that I have as well. But for me, when it comes down to, obviously they want to make Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, the major figure for the dark side, and in doing so, they wanted to get rid of everything in its path, Snoke included. And in order to do so, you had to go ahead and unfortunately take some things out of context, or just have the audience come to understand some stuff as far as Snoke's character, and also as well the understanding as far as Luke Skywalker becoming aware of Ben Solo becoming so powerful and so evil. You got to take a lot for granted when it comes to this picture, unfortunately, because it did so much other stuff instead of trying to tell the story a lot. Instead of trying to explain a lot of things, it tried to do a lot of other stuff. It tried to give some of the characters, side characters like Rose and Finn and Poe and Admiral Holdo, they wanted to give them something to do, and instead of going ahead and doing more exposition on the actual mythos and actual deep storytelling that Star Wars needs, it went to do those side stories, and I can see a lot of people not being able to follow it and not understanding it, not enjoying it as a result.
Do you feel like I feel like the divide in this has come from the hardcore fan versus the casual fan. The casual fans that I've talked to absolutely love it, and there are hardcore fans, quote unquote, who love this movie as well. But I think the big difference is the people who have spent more time invested in the Star Wars universe, read the books, canonical or non-canonical.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. You are exactly right. You're 100%.
And those are the ones who want to get all that backstory. They want the connection. Why is Snoke talking to Ben Solo? How did he manipulate him? And the casual fan says, oh, big bad guy. Oh, lightsaber turns death. That was super entertaining. And that was different than what we saw in the last movie and what we've seen in Star Wars to this point. So, I mean, do you guys think
it feels like to this movie, they threw out the Star Wars formula and brought in the Marvel formula. So it's kind of very simple plot points, very quick dialogue, very a joke every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it feels like they took out the stuff, the depth that made Star Wars, and put in the whole
like it wasn't a serious movie anymore.
Yeah, like they wanted to make it more like Marvel. Because one of my big things was that they made Finn into a Jack Sparrow type character, where in The Force Awakens he was kind of a tragic hero. And then in this one, he's just he's there for, it seems like he's there more for laughs than for
he went from
bringing the narrative forward.
He went from a major character to somebody that we show every so often.
Actor.
Yeah.
Well, to me, also there was a lot of finality to Episode 8 as far as a lot of things ending, a lot of story arcs ending. And in many ways, it seemed like Episode 9 was shoved also in Episode 8 as well. And there was a lot of things that was completed that didn't have to be completed as far as that story arc is concerned.
Yeah, I think and there's a lot of, I don't know, completed or not. I'm afraid that with the ending of this one, yes, we're in a new base, fine, and yes, there's Kylo Ren, and he's your single focus, baddie. That's great. I feel the anticipation building up to this story. I don't know where it's going to go, and that's interesting, but at the same time, I feel like in past Star Wars movies, leading from one to the other, you had an idea where the plot was going, at least to start the next film, and then this one, I don't see where it's going to go.
Yeah, well, it feels, like Gerald said, it feels very final. I don't think that Kylo Ren is a strong enough character, not in the Force, but just in the story in general, to carry a whole movie by himself. Like that was one of the things that bothered me, was that he's more like not at that point where he's like the Emperor, where he's like this big looming force over the galaxy. He seems kind of childish, and it's something that I'm not too interested in seeing unless they can change my mind somehow in Episode 9.
I feel like
he doesn't come across like a supreme leader.
No.
Right.
Right.
The Resistance and the First Order are in such tatters that it seems like this is basically, they become two trailer parks fighting against each other while the rest of the world just keeps spinning.
universe.
And General Hux is right there, the weasel that he is. He's just sitting right there, just going like, "What's up with this guy?" And he's just acting like a childish brat, and he's not actually taking the reins. Okay, he killed Snoke. All right, you're now in command, but act like it. Step up to the plate and act like it. And Hux, you can see it's going to end up with something like Hux trying to do something Weasley behind his back and probably end up dying for it in episode 9. But it just doesn't look like at this point in time that we should be actually frightened or actually interested as far as Kylo Ren to that level, other than just being like a spoiled brat who didn't get his toy or didn't kill his Skywalker or whatever he didn't get a chance to do that he's so mad about.
I feel like you got some sort of hint at that he has it when he was, when he just force choked the hell out of Hux and threw him against the wall or whatever. Like that was a little bit like I kind of popped for that. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then, like you said, nothing else came of it.
Right. I don't know. I have a hard time, like, if you compare the all-time great, Star Wars baddies, you're obviously talking about Darth Vader #1. It's not even close.
No, yeah.
He even referenced it in the movie. He's not Darth Vader.
Yeah, right. So I think with the original trilogy, Star Wars was this ultimate supreme baddie that struck fear into the heart across the galaxy. Kylo Ren is not doing that. And I'm wondering if maybe they're planning on Kylo Ren's arc to continue past 3 episodes. Because remember, Darth Vader was only through that original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So is Kylo Ren, maybe he's going to hit this last point, and then that leads into that next bit. I don't know if that's what they're trying to do, or I don't know. What do you think about that, Gerald?
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because I've always thought that, I was just thinking right now that maybe a good episode later on down for Topicocalypse is how has Darth Vader evolved from the most menacing individual as far as entity in entertainment at the time when I was young. Because like I said, I mentioned previously that the first movie I saw was Empire that Strikes Back in 1980. And now he's evolved into this lovable caricature where I'm wearing him on my ugly sweater. I've got like little pinups and stuff like that. And he's now almost like a cartoon character. How did he grow to become such a lovable character, even though, like you said, he's one of the most, dangerous people as, that we've ever experienced in this form of cinema.
It's almost like a whole wrestling thing. Like now where all the bad guys are the good guys and everyone hates the good guys. They're supposed to be the good guy or whatever. It's almost
it reminds me, it reminds me of the late 90s when The Rock and Steve Austin were acting like so bad guys, but they were so hugely popular and it was cool to enjoy them, and the NWO as well. So it's funny how that's, but Kylo Ren, you're exactly right. He is nowhere near at the level of what Darth Vader to be, and to ultimately get that satisfaction as a moviegoer, he has to become at that level of power, or there must be some new entry that's introduced that has to be at that supremely evil level for us to be, I guess, interested as moviegoers.
Well, I feel like movies nowadays, like they don't ever have like an all bad guy. He always has to have some tragic thing that made him that way. Like in Star Wars, but when the original trilogy came out, they didn't explain what happened to Darth Vader. He just was the bad guy. And I feel like now, like with Kylo Ren, they have to show like, it was tragic and it was a misunderstanding and he's got feelings and all this stuff.
He has to be a complex character.
He's a complex character, but he's not like an all bad guy.
Is he that complex though? Like he's your standard millennial. Like it seems like in this movie, like he's
more relatable.
He's more relatable, but at the same time, like I'm annoyed by millennials. I'm annoyed by myself most of the time. So like yeah. Thank you.
Well, that's a you issue.
Yeah, but I just like that kind of thing is, I don't know. It's weird because I get enough of it in the real world, or like when I'm walking by someone watching something on the CW, but like I don't want to see it in Star Wars.
Can I post a hypothetical?
Okay.
I think they could have made a decision that would have made Kylo Ren into the ultimate baddie and generally given us fear. Is that the last scene when Carrie Fisher is deciding to go back on the Millennium Falcon and all that, she decides to go confront Kylo Ren. And if Kylo Ren kills her then, saying, I killed my mother and my father, would that change would that complete his journey and change our opinion of saying, wow, this guy is total batshit crazy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the thing too, like I think I don't think Kylo Ren even realizes how powerful he is. The fact this is where I think they're going with because what he did to Snoke, I think that they're hinting at the fact that he's got powers beyond anyone's imagination, but he doesn't realize it yet. And so maybe that they're going to try to paint him into the ultimate villain in Episode 9. But for right now, like just the way the path that they're taking to get him there is not something I'm like super fond of.
You mean his hissy fit when he told him to blow up Luke?
Yeah. Because it seems like it's Adam Driver. He's such a great actor, but I don't like he has some Anakin in him in this. It reminds me a lot of Hayden Christensen's performance as Anakin Skywalker, and I remember being super annoyed by that, so I'm not too fond of it this second time around.
I agree with you on that. He does come off a little bit, why, and you're just waiting for him to go to the lower ground so that someone can come up on the high ground and finish him off.
Real quick, so we're all huge Star Wars fans, Gerald included. Daniel is kind of on the opposite side of that spectrum. So what did you think? Like what are your thoughts on the movie, just in general?
In general, it was enjoyable. I liked it better than Episode 7. I watched that the night before I went and saw this one, just so I could make sure I was up to date. A lot of confusing parts, and obviously it's not from, I don't know what it's from. Like, I don't know who Snoke was or where he came from. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I wish that they at least filled in with a little bit of a backstory, at least, instead of having an hour-long escape one ship to go to another planet. Super slow.
There was no except for except for the beginning of the movie, there was no epic space battle. It was like a slow speed chase the whole film,
and it drove me nuts.
So they kept comparing it to Empire, and hold on, I got a note here. I gotta get up. They kept comparing it to Empire, but the movie didn't really go places. Like in Empire, they were on Hoth, the Dagobah system, then they went to they were in the belly of the worm. They were in, and then Sky City, and then that was what made the movie exciting, and the whole confrontation with Luke and Darth Vader, and Leia and Han kind of discovering their feelings for each other. But in this one, the places when they did go new places, it didn't do anything for it. They
were never there long enough,
and that was my next thing. Is when you have Rose and my brain turned off. Finn, there you go. When they had them going around chasing, trying to get the code breaker and all that stuff, it seemed at the end it was pointless. It was like they're just filling in time.
Yeah,
is what it felt like. Well, they don't want to spend another 20 minutes of them slowly scooting across the galaxy to get to another planet. They're just throwing all these different cutscenes to
give Finn something to do.
Exactly, and it was just at the end of it, that was pointless to me. Right?
Back to the comparing it to The Empire Strikes Back. You made this huge buildup of whose Rey's parents were, and then you totally lowball everybody and say, who was nobody? You had the great buildup in Star Wars. It was like nobody saw it coming. I think nobody knew until they were filming it what was happening. George Lucas kept that really close, that Vader was Luke's father. And it seemed like they were building up to try to do something exactly like that in this movie, and they just totally shit the bed.
It was a total weird bad swerve.
Would that change your opinion if it was a misdirection, and at the end of Episode 9, it was actually, her parents are significant to the story? Because right now we're reacting to the one episode within it, and this should be viewed as a whole trilogy. I think we get caught up in this moment a little bit.
Well, I read that Rian Johnson, he that was off book. That was all him. He didn't tell anybody he was doing it. No one told him what he had to do. Granted, it was his artistic expression. But you made this huge buildup in Force Awakens, and then you just totally like I said, lowball everybody into after this huge buildup.
That was a big in all the articles I've been reading. That's a big thing. They're saying, that's daring on Rian Johnson's part. He's taking the Star Wars universe and turning it upside down, and that's what we want to happen. But it's not really.
Okay, but if you want to do that, you got a little bit better delivery. I mean, come on. They're nobody.
Yeah, they took basically all the mystery that was built up in The Force Awakens. They kind of just said,
"Pop the bubble."
Yeah, whatever.
F you, and they just kind of shattered it.
I mean, I get where they're going. Anybody can be a powerful Jedi. It doesn't have to be someone that's related to Skywalker or Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I get that. That's cool. But you had this huge buildup, like I said, and then you just totally like, oh, nobody.
But then is it also because you had two different people working on the
Yes.
screenplay
Instead of J.J. Abrams,
one?
right? J.J. Abrams wrote and directed the first one. Now they have Rian Johnson doing this one, and then J.J. Abrams is coming back to do episode 9. But which you still can save it because you could just say, "Oh, Kylo Ren was lying just to mess with Rey."
Right,
but still, it was just
take away that 45 minutes.
So underwhelming. Yeah.
I think that middle section you're talking about specifically, the word I would describe that whole middle section, Gerald, the one that you gave a 5 out of 10, was disjointed.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to summarize, even looking from, you've got J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, back to J.J. Abrams. It's disjointed. It seems like there's no continuity. But again, we're judging within only 2 of the 3 episodes of this whole arc. So maybe it gets redeemed in the last one, and then we breeze past all of this to say, this is all misdirection, or this is all whatever it is, and fine.
Yeah.
So be it.
Yeah.
So
I was entertained by it. Again, I'm not a super Star Wars fan.
Sure.
I don't even think sci-fi is actually my genre now that I think about it. You know what I mean? But it was still something I wanted to go see because of all the hype, all the buildup.
Right.
A couple other things that I didn't like is Leia in space somehow
with their dentures.
Their dentures flying into the wall.
That was
the ship.
So in filmmaking, they always keep to the acronym KISS. So keep it simple, stupid. And in this one, they're assuming that we've all read the books. They're assuming that we know that Jedi can survive in space without breathing for short periods of time. And so with that kind of came out of left field. So I get why people are upset about that. But it's cool she's still alive, and I can see why it would have been disrespectful to her memory to have her just blow up like that.
I think her pose was a little silly.
That flying through the air like Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
That was just one more thing that made me keep comparing this movie to Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, it felt less Star Warsy and more Guardians of the Galaxy to me because
it's like a space.
Because you're trying to have serious dialogue at certain points, and then you throw in this stupid joke that just kills the whole mood.
Right. I laughed at the dumb jokes because I like dumb jokes.
Sure. They have a place. I mean, even in Force Awakens, they have it like when Kylo Ren's having a temper tantrum and those 2 stormtroopers stop and they like turn around real quick and walk away. That was funny and well delivered. This stuff just felt forced every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Did you feel the jokes for you distracted at all? Where we were in the story and then, a joke, I got distracted.
I didn't feel that way. Again, I'm not a diehard, but there were some like, okay, that was kind of lame.
Sure.
But,
you get a few chuckles, but it's not like,
yeah, it wasn't
bad
crazy
taste in your mouth. And
then, there were some where the whole theater laughed. Like, especially at the end with the whole rock thing, of course, lifting rocks. It was like, that was a smart ass thing. It was great.
Sure.
Other thing we couldn't figure out is the whole, I didn't know that Jedis can make themselves holograms in front of everybody.
Like the astral projection.
And they can actually touch people.
Yeah,
and then
dusting off my collar.
Get the dirt on his shoulders.
And
then he just died out of nowhere after that. It's like, did that take all of his energy?
They tried to pull a Yoda / Obi-Wan Kenobi where they just disappear all of a sudden. I understand where they were going with that, but like, it just felt stupid. Like, it wasn't serious. I think the best part of that scene was when he said, "I'll catch you later, kid."
Yeah, that was
like the only best part of that scene.
If you try and kill me with anger, I will be with you forever.
Well, But like
your father.
But like that whole thing where like they're about to obliterate the resistance right then, and then Kylo Ren yells something somewhat seriously, and then Hux comes over and he does the exact same thing, and he throws in this stupid like Seinfeld look.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? You just ruined that whole dramatic scene.
Gerald, where do you stand on the idea that it was kind of in the comedy of the film? It was a lot more compared to the other Star Wars, and it felt. Do you think that it felt more like they broke down the Star Wars formula and more applied the Marvel formula to the Star Wars movie?
I agree with you on that sense, because you're right. They were trying to lighten the mood, but that middle part, it didn't need all that comedy. It needed a lot more storytelling and exposition during that part, and it also needed to not be in 4 different places at the same time trying to tell the story.
Right.
And that, to me, it really is where the story started to break down. The movie started to break down as a whole. When you're trying to tell too many things at the same time, you're trying to be light and cute and funny and all that. But then again, Star Wars has always been accused every now and then of trying to be light and cute, with the, obviously now with the Porgs being crazy, everybody going crazy for them, and just like, obviously from the Return of the Jedi and all those things as far as to sell products. Okay, yes, we get the fact that Star Wars is commercial, but if you're trying to tell a good story, you need to go ahead and stay within that story and have the laughs as a little here and there to help tell that story. And it seemed like you said there were a few occasions where it wasn't needed and it didn't come across very well. I just think that it is almost like a Disney telling Star Wars, hey, we need you to be a little bit more like Marvel in that sense. As regards to Leia and her death, unfortunately, she did pass away after the fact that she filmed this. And I do appreciate the fact that they gave her a tribute at the very end in the credits. But they did have an opportunity, and I spoke this earlier this week with director Rob McCallum and one of the stars of Nintendo Quest, Jay Bartlett. I talked to them, and they kind of brushed me off on this, but it was an opportune time to give her a send-off within the realm of the Star Wars universe, but also create an even more, and we talked about what Kylo Ren is, how we don't respect Kylo Ren enough. That could have been an opportune time to give Kylo Ren a better, more bigger, hey, I did get rid of my mom and my dad. I am that powerful. I am that bad. And they could have shot scenes around that, her unfortunate death and whatnot. And I think they had the opportune time, and now they're going to have to try and make up something in episode 9 that's going to feel to me a little bit contrived. But that's what they chose to do. That's what they chose to do. But I think it also would have created, if she would not have been in the rest of the movie, it would also given more to Vice Admiral Holdo and more importantly Poe Dameron, because that storyline with them arguing back and forth when all she had to do was just tell him in confidence what they were going to do, so he wouldn't be acting like a big baby himself. That it just, that part of it also could have been able to tell a better story as well, where the rebels in their last moments seemingly could have been more together instead of trying to break each other apart.
Right. So you're saying they kind of killed off the wrong character.
So that the thing with Vice Admiral Holdo.
I think so. I think they should have kept. As much as I enjoyed the way Luke went out with that forced heart attack or whatever it is, because he was so spent doing the image and whatnot. I really think they needed to think hard about how this happened, unfortunately, to Carrie Fisher in real life. How are we going to try and have her exit so that it means something within the Star Wars universe? And we're so keyed in, people who've been invested with the movies for so long. Oh, we've got to keep everybody alive within the 4, 5, and 6. No, I mean, those movies are done, and anybody remaining from those movies is greatly appreciated. But at some point in time, their story arc has to finish and continue, and the 7, 8, and 9 story arc should continue. So that's why I was kind of disappointed I didn't get to know much more about Snoke. Also, as well, Vice Admiral Holdo dying within the same movie she appears in. Although, yes, I understand she was in a book before, but I don't read the books. I haven't read a Star Wars book since the 80s. I'm sorry. I'm not going to apologize for it. It's just, there's so many Star Wars books out there. I just got overwhelmed as far as that, and I just tried to stay away. So to me, it's something where they should realize that they need to invest themselves more into the characters from 7, 8, and 9 and start phasing out of the 4, 5, and 6. They had an opportunity, I think, to meaningfully have Leia exit the series and chose not to do so for whatever reason.
What do you think about the abrupt end to one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars, Admiral Akbar?
There again, give him some meaning, but and it just seemed like he was just there just as background noise, and just
he should have been Holdor's part. Like, I feel like they didn't need that lady to play Holdor. They should have had Admiral Akbar play that part.
I like the way she was kind of like sneaky, and she just had that look about her. Like, you needed an actual,
but it would have made
actual person's face to get that point across the way she was.
The fish head.
It would have been so much more like cool as a Star Wars fan to see Admiral Akbar kamikaze his ship into a giant Star Destroyer.
I agree with you, and then save Holdo's character for what Princess Leia was doing for the rest of the film. I think that would have been a better outcome, because again, you're investing into the characters in this story arc, in this trilogy, and trying to create meaningful ways for the 4, 5, and 6 series of films for them to end their story arc. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Do you think they're setting up Poe to take over for when inevitably Princess Leia is removed from the film just because of her passing.
Yes and no. I think that Poe would not be a good leader. I like seeing him flying things because that's
You think that's where they're gonna go with Finn?
Well, I know he's mentioned in interviews that he that's as far as talking about the movie is concerned. I know he's mentioned in interviews that that's what he was being groomed. That the interactions between him and Leia was to set up for his leadership with the rebels down the road.
I'll blow stuff up every time.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I just hope that they don't take him out of the X-wings because those are some of the coolest scenes.
His reactions and just the way he talked. Yeah, it's just his whole thing.
So it's very possible that this episode 8 could be just this, and episode 9 could be fantastic. Like we don't know that, but there are some things about this one that I didn't like, and a lot of people were saying that I didn't like it. Were accusing me of not liking it for certain reasons because of things like saying it's not Star Warsy enough, or there's too much ethnicity and stuff like that. There's stupid college kid arguments.
You got hit by Facebook trolls.
Yeah, I got hit hard by Facebook trolls this past week. But we pretty much covered all my dislikes on the film except one. And there are several occasions when the lore kind of caves in on itself. Like they never in Star Wars has a Force ghost been able to interact with the world, like the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing that kind of got me. And the other was if they could run a ship at light speed into another ship, why haven't they been doing that throughout the course of the Star Wars movies?
Well, you don't want to blow up your ships.
Yeah, no, but I get that. And then I got one more thing, and the other one is if Snoke is all powerful, why couldn't he sense Kylo Ren doing what he was doing, or at least hear the lightsaber rattling?
But that's what Gerald was saying, is that it might be something that he's more powerful than Snoke, but he doesn't
realize it. Yeah, okay.
He's got other, the evil and the good were covering each other, so he didn't see what he was doing on the good side. He could only see the negative side.
Can I cover I want to cover the Force Ghost thing, where I think it's not so bad that it's now Force Ghosts can now interact with the world, because it should. But
sorry, just before you get there, but they actually do in the Return of the Jedi when Obi-Wan Kenobi is talking to Luke after Yoda dies. He actually is moving stuff like the trees.
See, I never noticed that before.
Well, it's just something you would never notice because it's something so small. But yeah, they can interact with stuff in the physical world.
Right, and if it didn't in your hypothetical situation, I think it's fine because you're evolving the lore. You're not saying, oh, this already happened and we just have to stick within this very rough boundary. We're moving the story forward, and I think Rian Johnson, as much as people like or don't like the movie, you can at least applaud his daringness to try something different. Not all of it worked, but you're at least trying, and you're changing the story a little bit. You're doing twists at different spots. You're killing people when you don't think they're going to be killed. And
Game of Thrones.
Again, not all of it might have worked, but you can at least applaud the effort, because if we had seen a rehash,
everyone would have been more pissed off.
I think more people would have been very upset.
I applaud him for trying new things, and even if some of these new things weren't his fault, I don't blame him for it. I mean, I imagine that as a Star Wars director, he probably faces the same pressures that someone directing a DC movie does, just having the studio execs kind of breathing down your neck saying, we need this to sell merchandise, we need this to sell tickets at Disneyland or whatever. Like, I get it from that point of view.
And then the fans paint you as the #1 villain if you don't.
You're the bad guy when it really is the company behind it.
But I feel like if a true fan made the movie the way the really hardcore fans want it, the public would hate it.
Yeah. No regular movie number would like it. But all this negativity, my favorite part of the movie was the interaction between Luke and Yoda with the original puppet from the original trilogy. That was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah,
it was a good call. I think it was a good callback, but
just the dialogue, he's still teaching him. He's still teaching him this later.
And wasn't Yoda like the most powerful Jedi at that time?
Yeah.
So.
I still like the way he calls him young Skywalker.
Yeah.
Because he's still acting. It's great.
In 900 years, you turn look so good. You will not.
So in that sense of it, he could technically have that power to where he can interact and set things on fire. So to me, it was like, okay, I didn't think twice of it, because from what I understood,
he's an all-powerful Yoda.
And come back and
Oh,
look like his.
For people who haven't read the books, in the books and the lore, there are like Sith ghosts who can, kill people, take over people's bodies, stuff like that. I mean, yet another thing that they don't go into, they just assume people will know in the movies.
Big flaw.
But the last thing that I really didn't like that grossed everybody in the theater
Oh, here it
out
comes. Here.
was where blue milk comes from. That was disturbing and so unnecessary.
I think I actually asked that on our last meeting.
Yeah,
If I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yeah.
Where does
Come
blue milk
from, yes.
I found out.
I got an
And it was
answer.
disturbing and horrible.
And just unnecessary, like you said.
Yeah, why did he have to make eye contact with her when he was drinking it? Like, yeah, I'm a badass. No, you're just disgusting.
Well, it just seems like another, like Josh said about, be like Guardians of the Galaxy, where these awkward, like supposedly funny moments.
So here's the thing where we're criticizing for not going into the lore, but now we have a spot where we're going into lore. We're finding out
It's
where
so
blue milk
minor.
comes from, and we're so
Where does
upset
green milk
about
come
it.
as opposed
So
to
I think
Force Ghosts?
this might just be like critic culture, where we're just
Yeah.
we're never going to be happy,
Right.
and
And
you can just take a step back and appreciate it for
right.
what it is. The soundtrack was still great.
Oh, absolutely,
Yes.
yes. No, I love that. And when I left with the movie theater with my friend, I brought it back to what you're saying about story. Can you follow it? Yeah, I followed it. Did I want to? Not for half of it. No. The action, I loved when with Chewbacca flying the Millennium Falcon through everything, and then Rey just blowing shit up.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite part of the whole movie. And then the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like the soundtrack, it was the same. When you have Luke, you have that same.
It's
song.
callback.
It brings back that
Yes.
old school feeling for you.
Goosebumps right now, man.
Yeah.
Thinking about it. Yeah, I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
So I mean, it was cool like that. I mean, I didn't really hate the whole movie. Like I said, like same with
No, there were
that middle
bright
part,
spots.
the ending of that whole movie totally saved it for me. Brought me back in because I was like, I checked out.
Yep.
I was like, I'm done. Yeah, whatever.
The seats where we saw it were very comfortable.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
My going back to like the old stuff that came back. The one thing that I was like, I super like got popped for was when R2 showed the old video.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
of
that
Princess
was-
Leia. Yes.
to wake up.
That was very
like
cool.
it hit those heartstrings. I was like,
Right.
that. Thank you for that. That was
Right.
just amazing.
Yeah.
Like to see Carrie Fisher as young Carrie Fisher.
Right.
And then I also loved the evil BB-8. That was just
That-
awesome.
Oh
It was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
Very short cameo, but
short cameo,
very
but
effective.
it was
funny,
and
yeah.
you could tell, he was evil because the slow, like even I was talking to my friend, she's like the slow little head turn when he was like checking everything out, like it was slow and deliberate, and it was something someone
it-
evil would do.
Isn't it amazing how much personality you can get out of a little robot?
Oh my God, I love
Say
BB-8.
anything.
Like
Yeah.
like
You get
the
so much
interaction-
emotion.
R2D2.
the
Yeah.
little interaction with BB-8
Right.
and Poe. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. It was like it makes you
Right.
feel like like you.
Where's my
take it
droid?
home. Yeah, I want one now.
All right. So something that we got in email, we had some people who were emailing us who were giving us their reviews, and we thank you so much for all your emails. We're going to get to them now, actually. So Josh, can you pull up some of those emails? We want to
All right.
get a
So
look.
our first one is from Ashley.
I have no idea how to
We
say it.
apologize if we
Yeah,
butcher
we're
your
sorry.
name. It's
Our-
Josh's fault. His address is.
All right, so you said this. You said, I love it. I can't call it my favorite, but it's totally on par with the originals for me. I love learning more about the Force. I love the idea that there isn't only good and evil, black and white, but so much in between. I thought crotchety Luke was great, like Obi-Wan and Yoda before him. Becoming a Jedi recluse can make you grumpy, off-center, and set in your ways. And to those saying he didn't get to be his hero self, he did. He saved what little resistance there was left. Leia's space float might have been cheesy in execution, but I love seeing her use the Force at a crucial time in a new way. I thought Poe's arc was beautiful and Holdo's sacrifice amazing. I really like that Snoke was no big deal, just an obstacle in the way of Kylo's ascension to Supreme Leader. And Rey not being a relative to anyone says so much. Anyone can hone their Force sensitivity. Rey is all of us, and there are others. And Star Wars actually does a lot of this. A slave boy, a farm boy, a smuggler, all becoming something more. And finally, Kylo and Rey battling Red Guards was stunning. My favorite lightsaber battle ever. Also, to those who are saying everything was resolved, I don't even know what they could do from here. Did you not see that Kylo is now the unhinged leader of the galaxy? Think the Resistance is just going to let that happen? And let me remind you, A New Hope and Phantom Menace both resolve themselves. I've seen it thrice, and I can't wait to see it again. Okay, so
Thank you.
That was good.
Thank you for that. That was great.
yeah, thank you.
Way better than we all said it.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree with you that the lightsaber battle with Kylo Ren and Rey was actually
And the
really
Red
cool.
Guard.
It was so good, yeah.
It was
good.
cool. It
Like
might
the
not
Red
like it's getting a lot of flack for not being well choreographed and more like a kung fu movie, but I thought that it was great. Where do you stand on that, Gerald?
I thought it was different, and I thought it was really good. For me, I think it goes back to what from the Conja Club, the stars, the movie. Oh my gosh, you know that action movie from the kung fu movie that came out a few years ago. J.J. Abrams liked it so much as far as it goes to that he used them in the Conja Club in The Force Awakens.
Oh no, I didn't. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, the stars of that kung fu movie. Oh gosh, it's one of my favorite movies. I got to get off the top of my head. But I tell you what, that style, that choreographed way of doing it was really just something different, unique, and it really brought something new and entertaining. It brought something that, even though the Crimson Guard looked really tough, that they still cannot overcome a good, a skilled Jedi, and also a team up of Rey and also Kylo Ren. But to me, it was actually very, very good, and I enjoyed it thoroughly than a standard, okay, it's you versus me lightsaber duel. Because I'm assuming it's going to go back to that at some point in time in Episode 9 between Rey and Kylo Ren. It's probably going to come down to that.
Is this the first time we've seen the Crimson Guard in action? I know we've seen them in movies, but I don't ever remember seeing them in action. I've only seen it in video games and things like that.
Yeah,
but
no,
never.
it
always just kind of stood around.
I think it's cool to
Yoda
finally
knocked 2 out in the.
Yeah, that's right. And in The Force Unleashed, I think you actually have a couple times when you fight
in
them.
the video game, The Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
And they're very difficult. So I know that, and I know that from playing a game and putting extra time into the universe. But I think the average person, they've seen them and they've been, they're like a break glass just in case.
Yeah.
And the fact to see them all, they just killed our
Actually do
supreme.
something?
Yeah, they killed our supreme leader. This is the time that we're here for, and to see them totally fight is very, very cool.
I liked seeing them do the whole thing like in kung fu movies where they show off their weapon skills before going into fight.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat.
Can I interject? It's the Raid Redemption. If you ever get a chance to see the Raid Redemption,
that's a good movie.
Yes, and that reminds me, that sequence with them battling and whatnot, those two, there's a sequence in the movie where two of the individual heroes in the movie are battling against a series of criminals within that apartment building, and it's well choreographed, and it definitely reminds me of that. And you know what? I think it was all the better for it. The movie actually just was enhanced by that actual action sequence.
I do have one more point I want to bring up in Ashley's email. She said that Rey is all of us, and I do agree with that. I think that, if they choose to stay on this path where Rey was just born as from nobody, kind of like the Hermione Granger of the Star Wars universe. I think that that's cool, because she's like Spider-Man. She's the everyman hero, or every woman hero, however you want to say it. She's just a normal person. Like, we can relate to her struggle, and I think they're doing a great job with Rey's character.
Yeah. I just didn't like that they, like I said, built it so up in the first movie.
Yeah, and we don't know. Like, that could be in this direction, but in
the moment right now, it's definitely. I totally get what you're saying. Where that was.
So when J.J. Abrams listens to this and writes the next one, make it a swerve.
We're totally tagging
it. Make it a swerve.
Yeah, and see, that's the whole thing too. Like, I didn't like the movie as in its entirety, but Episode 9 could change my opinion of that. This could all, like, whatever comes on Episode 9 could clear up whatever problems I had with this movie.
My question is has it been said why his name is actually Ben Solo, but he's going by Kylo Ren now?
Well, I think because there's an order called the Knights of Ren that they don't explain ever. Yet another thing that Snoke mentions it in the first movie. He goes, Kylo Ren, Master of the Knights of Ren. And they like, there's like a brief shot of them when Rey has a flashback.
The Knights of Ren were the Jedis that separated from Luke Skywalker, or the trainees.
Yes. But there's like no backstory yet again.
So
probably that could be the new bad.
Burned it down. He took them away.
Yeah.
Took away a thumb and then killed the rest.
Yeah, which that could be a great thing for the Episode 9 is that you have Kylo Ren who's unhinged, but then he also has this gang of equally unhinged, like dark Force users to go at the Resistance, which would be great. You could add so many new characters.
Well, thank you, Ashley, for sending us an email. We'll send you a personalized note and a signed headshot from Josh.
Yay!
Hey.
We also have a couple more emails. We want to get to Miles next. Josh,
Okay, so this
Is
is
that
from
right?
Miles Alendrino.
Alejandrino.
Sorry, but if I mispronounced your name.
Josh has a degree in English.
Yeah, but not
Reading.
Yeah, not reading. Okay, so Miles says, I really enjoy the way The Last Jedi and Rogue One have been fleshing out these sides. I feel like they're adding richer layers to each side by making it more gray. I like flaws in characters and the flaws they add to the Jedi Order and Rebels generally. I also know that Snoke was nobody and Rey is nobody, because who cares? I hated most / all of the fan theories. And these type of mysteries were never important in Star Wars. The big thing I loved was Luke's send-off. A lot of people hated. I didn't love everything they did with them, but as a fan of the original trilogy, I always felt having Jedi Masters who defeated opponents with lightsabers was very shallow. As Yoda tried to teach him in Empire, it is not physical force that matters.
Size matters not.
Taking a breath here. Luke finally learns the lesson and uses his brain versus Kylo. He even assumes the form of himself when Kylo would have hated him the most. Flashback Luke to further infuriate him into a bad decision. I could talk a long time about why I felt this was the best way to send the character off. Overall, there were a lot of issues I could nitpick, but I enjoyed not being just light / dark, black and white, but more three-dimensional now.
I get it. I completely agree. You're adding complexity to a story that was in the original trilogy, complex for its time, but looking in by today's standards, fairly simple.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Finish.
Oh, so it's great. We get so many great TV shows now that are so in-depth, complex, interesting weaving stories moving in and out. With this, although we're not at like Game of Thrones complexity, we're starting to get, we're getting twists where we're not expecting them. We're getting deeper characters, more character development, which is what I think the average everyday fan wants to see. And the fact that Star Wars has kind of stepped it up a little bit in character development with this episode, I think, speaks a lot to Rian Johnson.
You know, we keep saying this Luke send-off. I mean, just because he's dead or not, it doesn't mean he's gone from the film. His physical form is gone, but like Obi-Wan Kenobi was in the Return of the Jedi, and he was in Empire Strikes Back. They were so briefly in Empire Strikes Back, but just because he's physically dead doesn't mean he won't be in Episode 9.
And I'll admit this as a longtime Star Wars fan that yes, I am one of those people that has a hard time letting go of what's familiar to me. So
let it go.
Yeah, exactly. And that might be one of the reasons that I didn't like the movie. Maybe I think I was talking to some people earlier before we went on that maybe I just need to watch it again and kind of see, let it rest once I kind of understand now why he did these things. But who knows,
we got Gerald's star, rating out of it and out of 10 score. What would you give it? Because you just said you weren't really a big fan of it.
I wouldn't go below a 5, but I would say probably like a 6.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Right.
Still a lot of room for improvement, but there's still some things that we're saving.
Right. And Gerald, do you think that this is something that could be turned around? Like Episode 9 could come out and it could just completely change the way we think of Episode 8?
I think so. I think if it's done correctly and gets a lot of people interested. I mean, you cannot have as much backlash as you do at this point in time for the Star Wars series. But I think Episode 9, if done right, done correctly, J.J. Abrams seems to wants to do everything on the safe point of view. Obviously, Episode 7 is a representation of that. If he makes it more like he did the Star Trek reboot, just such a great film, to me, the best in the entire Star Trek series, and he looks at it from that realm because he's in many ways he's almost given a chance to reboot or restart a lot of this mythos, because a lot of his creations and also a lot of the creations from 4, 5, and 6 were killed off in this movie. So he's got an opportunity in many ways to create almost like a brand new tree going forward. Instead of ending this trilogy, it could actually start something special and actually bring a lot of people who were very against what's going on and very, very sad and mad about what happened in Last Jedi, and could bring them back into the fold if it's done right.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Very well said, Gerald. Very well said. Well, Miles, thank you so much again for your contribution. We've got a few more emails, don't we, Josh?
Yeah. All right. So this one is from Sarah Pate. This is a long one, so we're gonna try to get through it, but I might paraphrase a few things here. So Sarah Pate says, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Where do I start? I think overall it was a really well done movie. While I don't agree with some of the writing choices and wish they would have omitted a few of the scenes, I think overall it was a nice extension of the Star Wars universe. So ever since Star Wars began, we've had this concept of good versus evil, light versus dark. Nothing is really that simple, though. And the fact that they very clearly explained the existence of a universal energy in a way that you could feel what the Force really is was my favorite part. The character development in Kylo Ren was spectacular. Although I'm a longtime Rebel scum, I will say he's my favorite character in these newest editions by far. And not just because Adam Driver is ridiculously hot. Getting to see the... That was all Josh. That was her words, not mine.
Are you sure?
I like that drop, please.
Yeah.
Especially without a shirt on.
Getting to see the moment of his official turn to the dark side was the straw that broke the camel's back. Really helps us understand him. Rey's exploration of her feelings and facing her fears was also a needed addition into her psyche. The cinematography and quality of the movie was, of course, amazing. The sand and red salt scene was gorgeous, and I appreciated it.
Was it ever?
It was. And
was it ever?
what I took to be symbolism of spilled blood, whether or not that was intended, it was beautiful.
Oh, that's good job, Sarah.
Now, for the
nice,
downsides, yeah, I was very torn on Luke's development. I agree with Mark Hamill that I didn't like the direction they took his character at all. It does, however, at least bring humanity and imperfection to the Jedi Order. I thought there were unnecessary scenes attempting to make things funny when they didn't need to be. Odd scenes of drinking alien milk. He asked Kylo Ren if he has anything to cover his shirtless self up. And although I love the Porgs, maybe one too many Porg scenes just put it a little bit over the top. I get that it's Disney now and they want it to be as inclusive and relatable as possible, but I would have enjoyed the movie more without those moments. From a directing standpoint, I thought some of the scenes were played a little too pretty. Daisy Ridley is a fantastic actress, but if you were being force choked upside down, there wouldn't you? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm messing this up. I don't know what you're trying to say. I don't know a little ugly looking. So if you were hanging upside down,
so should you look a little bit more
you
dramatic?
would be okay.
A little.
She would look so great.
A little more 50 Shades darker.
Oh, jeez. Also, in the scene where she and Kylo are forced tug of war over a lightsaber, Kylo looks like he's using the Force and everything in him to get the lightsaber. Well, Rey looks mildly constipated. Again, that's nothing against Daisy Ridley. She can't see her own face. That's a director's choice from his point of view. Well done, Rian Johnson. Lastly, there's Princess Leia floating through space. I get it. Yeah, she can use the Force to move, but also to breathe and not explode into zero air. I guess I don't know. Nice, but a little too far-fetched. I'm a little torn on that one. The thing that makes my heart ache the most, and I'm not sure if this is even a positive or negative, it's the loss of Luke. Especially knowing that Leia's character is not going to be able to continue due to Carrie Fisher's passing. Having lost the love of that Star Wars generation is a big blow. I get why they made the decisions. I get what they were trying to do. I get that they were moving the Star Wars universe into a completely new era, which knowing Disney will mean there will be more Star Wars movies than Fast and the Furious movies in the end. But that doesn't mean I have to like it. I'm really hoping they showcase Force Luke in tremendous ways in the development of understanding the Force. All in all, it was a great movie. A few moments pulled me out of it, which I don't like. I want to be fully immersed in a movie and not be thinking about the content of it itself while watching it. Other than those moments, I'm slightly disagreeing with some of their choices. I did enjoy the development of characters that are going to be carrying Star Wars for the next generation of fans. If nothing else, on a completely superficial level, at least we got a shirtless Kylo. P.S. Sorry.
Also Josh.
Sorry, I added that, guys. Sorry.
And the big heart emoji.
P.S. Sorry, this turned ridiculously long. Your newest listener and just now podcast converts, Sarah. Well, Sarah, thank you very much. What do you guys have any thoughts on that?
So going towards the back to the comedy aspect of it, the whole Chewbacca eating the porgs, I laughed my ass off.
Yeah, that was funny. That was really funny.
But then it's like, how did he become friends with every other single one after eating their own?
Well, I think
he didn't.
They were infested in the Falcon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that
Kind of like Red
that's so.
Well, and I think moments of there's different types of comic relief you can have. You can have moments like that where not a single word is said, but like we were talking about with the droids earlier, the emotion you get from a grunt is remarkable. And then you see that animal interaction. I think it's the same interaction when you have the small kids who are working with the large camel ostrich things. I apologize for any hardcore Star Wars fan. I don't know the name. I never will.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also, there was like a moment of, sadness. It's not that I'm a huge animal rights activist, but I hate zoos. I hate all that stuff. So seeing the horse racing, equivalent that they had, and you saw the scars on their side, that tugs at my heartstrings more than Luke dying. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's a symbolism for oppression.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, why would they zoom in on that? I mean, I understand, that the Rose character, she's explaining where she came from and why
Look
she
closer.
That.
It doesn't look so pretty.
Exactly, make it a closer look, and then they also do the same thing with Rey. Look closer at what's going on to the Resistance now when he forces her to go into the Looking Glass, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
This was a great scene, by the way.
Yeah.
Right, Gerald, do you have any thoughts on that email there?
You still there?
Well, outside of what you were saying about Adam Driver? Okay, man, I'll let you go off on all that. But I will say this. I agree with a lot what she said as far as where it's going and what's going on with it. But actually, that leads me into another question, because I know we talked throughout sporadically regarding the whole movie as being this canonizing point for everyone to start these petitions and start this vitriol online and whatnot. What if the prequels had been around and actually were made in today's modern 2017 social media society? What do you think the backlash would be from those? Because technically, I believe those are actually worse movies than what The Last Jedi is. Whether you like it or do not like it, those prequels really just stand up to the test of time, and not in a good way.
Yeah, so it's basically like, okay, you don't like this one, we'll go back and watch the first 3 prequels and then tell me how you really feel.
I think those prequels were actually entered for awards as a cartoon because there was so much CGI. Like over 80% of it was CGI, so it's considered a cartoon more than actual.
Yeah,
I mean, now we see them in memes, now we see them in GIFs and all that. But if they had actually come out, if actually The Phantom Menace had come out in 2017 instead of Last Jedi, what would have been the backlash? More, less? What do you think?
I want to say probably equal, slightly more, just because and this might just be a product of the times too. The CG in those movies was pretty bad. So
it was right at the time when CG was starting to get good-ish, but it was way better than anything that was around at that time.
Right.
But looks very dated. And so I think you see that now they're not using as much CGI. There's still CGI, obviously, but they're using it to enhance actual objects on the screen as opposed to using them to completely fill in the object.
Yeah, and now they have like particle programs that you can use to run over it to make it have that coarse look of real life.
You think Rian Johnson's going to come back in 10 years, release a new version and add new creatures?
A remaster.
It's going to be like,
like Avatar.
10 scenes with Jabba the Hutt in them.
Hey, Gerald, you're talking about the prequels and then this movie and how they compare. Where does the latest installation of the Star Wars franchise fit within
the first
all of them? Within all of them. So rating all 8, where does this fit in? Is it in the top half, the bottom half? Where does it sit for you?
I'm actually looking that over now because I'm going to be writing an article coming up in the next few days, updating an article where I did rate out the actual Star Wars movies in order. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be placing it right just barely ahead of The Force Awakens, but behind the 3 films that most people seem to love the most in episodes 4, 5, and 6.
So what if you were to take 1 and 2, then 4 and 5, and now 7 and 8, and compare the first 2 of each of them as to where you're getting the story to go?
Is what you're saying.
That to see, like, you can compare, thought processes. Granted, it was, again, 2 different directors and writers for these last 2. But like comparing them, not for their time, not at today's.
You mean from a story point,
sure. Right? From a story point, like
where are we at in the story?
Yeah. Sweet, I got everyone be quiet.
Radio. I think you're directing it at Gerald.
Well, I tell you what, I think that if you were to compare to, because the number 1 and 2 are not very good films. Number 2, I guess, is the best of the prequels that's mostly considered. If you talk about it as a detective story, I like that part of that film, but all the rest of it, as far as the love story, that was so contrived. obviously, Anakin's performance becoming, that young adult he was. In a lot of ways, it exemplifies and reminds you of just what people don't like about Kylo Ren's performance as far as the spoiled brat routine that Josh, I know, mentioned earlier. If 4 and 5 work so well, and especially episode 5 works so well together, you'd have to put those two on top as a combo ahead of what 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 do. But 1 and 2, bad aside, Jar Jar aside, and all that, it had the most to do as far as trying to set up the Star Wars universe. And maybe it was asked to do too much. I think so. And no matter how long that those movies are, because they are long, I think they were just given too much to task. And I think Josh, I said it best when you talked about having this director so much pressure on these directors to make these films. When you're talking episode 1 and 2, and you already know you have to try and set up this already existing franchise, that's just a task I wouldn't have made as a filmmaker, because you're just set up to lose every single time.
I think anyone who makes a film today, like when the next episode comes out, episode 9 comes out, the reaction to it's going to be even harsher. It's going to be even more polarizing. I think you guys have talked about this in one of your previous podcasts, but like critic culture, it's just it's harder and harder and harder to make something that people like in general. And so,
but do you think that because J.J. Abrams, like he seems like he said with the reboot of Star Trek, and I think he like kind of knocks it out of the park almost all the time. Do you think people are going to take that into account and like give him a little bit more slack?
I don't think so.
I think they're going to compare it to number 7 since he did 7.
Well, yeah.
It's,
that's what I mean.
it's Star Wars, so at the end of the day, there's going to be people that hate it. There's going to be people that love it. Just because this one was bad, it doesn't mean that. Or I mean, in my opinion, just because I didn't like this one, that doesn't mean I'm not going to go back and watch episode 9. It was just it was just one movie out of the more recent ones I just wasn't impressed with.
Well, like you said, like the prequels, everybody said that the Phantom Menace was horrible. But we all went and saw
6 times.
And the other ones,
and we all own them,
Yeah,
even though they're bad, we all bought
DVD
them.
and the Blu-ray.
And the Blu-ray, yes. Yeah.
And if a movie goes over $2 billion, who can argue with that? That's the ultimate thing for Disney. If enough casual fans go and see the film, it's going to go. That's the ultimate marker for Disney right now. It's garnered over $500 million worldwide. It's tracking about only 10 to 15% less than what episode 7 did. So basically, if it continues that realm and does actually get near or at $2 billion mark, that's going to tell Disney that the casual fan, no matter how much vitriol, no matter how much anger there is in social media, the casual fans do come out for a Star Wars film.
Right. Do you think that Rian Johnson is probably like, oh man, they actually like this movie. I don't think nobody.
All he's thinking is, look at my new Rambo.
If he's smart, and I think if any of these filmmakers are smart with something that has this many eyes on it, you stay away from the social media. You stay away from all of it, because you can you can inflate your ego and deflate your ego in 2 tweets.
George Lucas.
Right.
But I think if we get on the track, or Star Wars gets on the track to $2 billion, that's going to be the 3rd year in a row that a Star Wars film tops the box office, because Rogue One did it last year, and then Episode 7 did it the year before.
Rogue One was last year.
Rogue One was last year, and then the year before that was Episode 7.
Yeah.
So then this year, if Episode 8 does it, that's 3 years in a row that the top grossing movie worldwide is Star Wars. So they're doing something right.
The next movie, is it going to be one of the spin-offs?
It's Han Solo.
Is it the Han Solo one?
Right?
Okay.
Gerald, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, it's coming in late March. It is Solo, and that's one of the things I was surprised about, that they didn't show a trailer to it. The movie's wrapped. The movie's already finished. It's in post-production. Everything. The trailer should have been you should have gotten enough footage for trailer, because you're already seeing trailers for movies. In fact, Disney just debuted another one for a day for next November in the Nutcracker. So why isn't Solo being shown already to fans out there? Because the next major time for trailers to come out is most likely around Super Bowl time.
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense. Well,
or maybe during the Infinity War.
Maybe. Well, Sarah.
Well, but it's coming out before Infinity War, so that makes it even more tricky.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Oh.
Hold on, guys. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Fail.
Okay.
That's the dogs trying to weigh in with their thoughts on The Last Jedi.
They said it was rough. Am I right, people? Am I right?
I never wanted to
Oh,
leave more.
You never wanted me anymore. Like, all right, you're a pun guy. I'm a pun guy.
Too
You missed
funny.
a good joke, Josh.
I missed a drop dead pun.
Yeah, it was a great.
Maybe
drop.
want to drop dead.
Rough.
All right.
Just like
Well,
another
Sarah, thank you so much for your email contribution. We really do appreciate it.
And
We
for
do
being
have,
a new listener.
and for being a
Yeah,
new listener.
for
yeah, absolutely. Great email. Great email.
We got one last one from Mary.
All right.
All right. So Mary did not give us a last name.
You mean don't need to.
Okay.
It's better to be anonymous.
Yeah.
All right. Mary Anonymous said, "I love the movie!" ! The parts I had the most problems with was Rey's parents. I think there is way more to it than them being nobodies. I think they put too many hints in there that Ben and Rey are twins, and they put her away to keep her safe. It makes you think, though, if Ben turns to the light, what characters are they going to add to balance the force? Because they can't have two powerful people on one side. Overall, I was captivated the whole time. I felt like they did it justice. Problem with a franchise this epic is there are going to be people coming away from these movies seeing completely different stories. And that is very true. That is the
You just described this podcast.
that is the truest
Well, we
thing.
didn't
to
do
say
it.
about Star Wars.
Should have started with Mary.
Yeah, and that's the problem with a lot of the reviews we're saying too. Everyone has a different take on it. People who like the movie can't even agree on why they like the movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised, Josh, that you didn't paraphrase about Adam Driver again.
It's really hot.
Oh yeah, and I mean Adam Driver with a shirt off.
More emojis.
But it's kind of like, to me, looking at like Jar Jar in Episode 1, the whole, granted he was a bigger part of the movie. I can't get over the blue milk thing. I just can't.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just kind of like the
Unnecessary.
sore thumb that's gonna stick out to this one, to me.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do something like that, they made it so awkward.
Yeah.
He's staring at Rey as he does it.
Contact.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Like, what do you think of this?
It's like making eye contact while eating banana. It's just, don't do
Right.
it.
I think touching on the Rey's parents thing, it's too early to say if that's really
How it's going to
her
go.
lineage and really what's going on. I hope not, but if it is, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think what they made the mistake of is building up.
Yeah.
And that's us, all of us as fans. Our time in the Star Wars universe is not just watching it on TV. We look at subreddits. We look at
Well, because everybody's waiting for the next, Luke, I am your father.
right.
in
We're
the-
looking
in the
for that
series.
next
That last-
classic.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
turn.
Right. But I don't think by today's standards, like a Game of Thrones level twist.
Right, yeah.
I don't think that belongs in the Star Wars universe.
No.
It's
You don't
too
need it.
complicated. They don't need it. So I don't think we're ever going to get that. We're expecting this great big aha moment. And in the 80s, that was a big aha moment because TV wasn't doing that.
Right.
So now we're in today's, Game of Thrones comparison world where we have these twists. We're not going to get that. But what we can get is good character development, which has improved.
Yes.
We're going to get excellent cinematography, which has always been there, but it's now even better with the greatest technology.
Excellent soundtrack.
And just
Excellent soundtrack. If
just
John
imagine
Williams,
what's gonna
John
happen-
Williams.
what's
John
gonna happen
Williams
with
stayed
the
alive.
new technology with the next movie that comes out.
Right.
And full disclosure, I went and saw the movie with Mary.
Yeah.
So
Hi, Mary.
she brought up a good point. Like, she asked me, she's like, "Could you follow it?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can follow it." And that's the thing, is it's not too, in depth where you have to actually read the books to know what's going on.
Sure.
Like with Twilight or with the Harry Potters or even
Lord of the Rings.
Thank you.
There you go.
Hot Shots.
Hot
yes.
Shots.
Lord of the Rings. You don't need to really read them to know, but
Right.
until you get these things to where Leia can survive in space without.
Yeah, they don't ever explain
That's the-
anything. It's a bunch of,
or-
like,
I think that's
whatever.
that's the Disney part of the film
Yeah.
where they're reaching out to younger kids.
Right.
And you've got to keep it, like Josh said, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Like
Like one of the things that I don't know if we discussed it, but the film just seemed to jump. It was really choppy. Like, you had these 4 locations, 4 different stories, and it just seems like you spent 20 minutes on just jumping back and forth. It was just it was hard to get a flow going.
That's what it goes back. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like when
that's that middle chunk, especially.
they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to do it because you're going 2 miles an hour. And it's just like, okay, this is the most
Longest
boring
space
part
chase
ever.
I've seen this episode of Cops. It does not end well.
I love him. Don't take him away.
He's my lover.
However, the way they did do it justice when she went to warp speed.
That was a really
So
great
sick.
scene.
That was so amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for sending the emails, and everybody. We really appreciate the emails. Please continue sending the emails. You can email us at topicocalypse@gmail.com.
Any ideas, topics that you want us to talk about?
We got New Year's and new topics ahead. 2017 has been a doozy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Gerald, you want to give us a quick plug for where everyone can find you all over the internet?
Vegas, we found out last time.
They can actually, coming out of Las Vegas, I do this little show with my good friend Josh Peterson twice a week. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos Show. You can find us on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, available on Apple Podcasts, also as well podcast.com, the Tangibound Network, the ESO Network, and over a dozen different podcast networks. We cover the latest trends, obviously The Last Jedi included, the latest trends and pop culture. And you also, for those who can't get enough The Last Jedi, our latest episode that'll be hitting this week will be a spoiler cast where you can hear Josh even more expound on his love, not for Adam Driver, but for The Last Jedi.
And Gerald, you said you were writing an article. Where can we find that article once you have it up?
Absolutely. Josh and I also have this little site. It's called popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. I've actually already have a site, that article up. I'm going to be updating it with my thoughts on The Last Jedi. In lieu of an actual full review, it's the actual Pop Culture Cosmos Guide to the Star Wars universe. And it will be up actually by the time that Josh and I tape tomorrow.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure we'll give that at least a retweet, a nice link out there, and expand the followers.
Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for coming on. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
I'm glad to do so. No, it's great talking to you guys, and I just appreciate the coming onto the show and talking to all you guys about all things pop culture. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime, man. Well, again, this is Topicocalypse. Thank you all for listening. We'll get this episode up very soon.
Josh?
When, Josh? Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as we're done recording, right?
Yeah.
Is that where we're going?
Wow,
4.
All
Josh.
right. 3, 2,
9.
1.
This has been Topicocalypse.
Peace.